Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Untethering Shame podcast, a podcast where we're bringing hard topics out of the shadows and into the light as we move from shame-ridden to shame-resilient lives. I am excited and honestly nervous about today's topic, the process and experience of aging. Just the idea, honestly, just the word of aging or getting older is one I've had to sort through a lot lately, and I've had a lot of heavy feelings around. I think after my grandma died last year, I was confronted on, a different level with the idea of mortality and what it means to get older and eventually die. Having a 3-year-old at the time this came to a head has been a super intense and in many ways helpful layer in the process because it forced me to face a lot of topics that my shame and fear would have rather tucked beneath the surface. From thinking about meaning making and value, the drive for success and the futility and so many things we get conditioned to care about and lose ourselves in, and the evolution of our bodies as we age, this topic is intense and complex. And what makes it worse is the fear and shame in talking about it. Aging has been presented to us as something to fear and fight. From the wrinkles on your face, random hairs on our chin, change in appearance, sexual functioning, values, and roles, we see this downward trajectory before us. And then it's just your job to hide your aging as best you can and don't remind the world of our shared mortality, but just slowly fade into the background so people can stay focused on the doing, the grind, rather than being. So what do we do to shift the conversation? How do we see our lives as something we get to curate and make our own way in? How do we show up for our bodies and allow them to feel and be as they are without hiding, changing, or correcting this process? What would it be like if we talked about topics like sex with more openness and expansion, or the right to start over, shift gears, and choose different routes and endings from what we've been moving towards until now? Joining me to have this conversation is both one of the sweetest souls, dearest friends, and a colleague of mine, which I'm so excited to say that, Bobbie Harte Shaw. With a master's degree in marriage and family therapy and a plethora of her own pain, processing, and experiences, Bobbie and I didn't come to this conversation lightly. We've both worked through layers of shame and the release of time as a scarcity-driven construct. We've had to find grace and excitement in the being rather than the next step. And in that same breath, we're both holding this for our clients as well. Bobbie and I met before her journey to mental health professional officially began, but it was clear the first time I met her that she embodies the construct of safety and openness. She makes people feel seen, which was evident in her work as a photographer for many years as well. She would bring out the pain, love, shadows, and spark in people's lives and faces simply by holding up her camera saying, "I want to see you." She's someone who wants to grow and learn. She chases failure and flop as a means to keep evolving and is not shy about putting her process into the world as a means of helping others in their own process of loving themselves, then, now, and in the future. Unsurprisingly, her focus in the therapy room is centered on grief, connection in relationships, and compassionate living. I'm excited for the ripple effect she has and will continue to make in this world, and I'm just eternally grateful to be sitting here with her today, to be talking about this really hard, really important, and just overwhelming topic. I guess with that, Bobbie, let me bring you in because I can feel the heat in my pits and in my right side body right now. So one, I'm excited you're here, but two, I'm like, all right, we're done with the intro and now we're going and I can feel it. So let me welcome you first before the heating takes over.
I am so happy to be here. And you are such a great writer. That introduction was just, wow. Thank you so much. That's beautiful.
Oh, you're welcome. It was one of these, they're like mini love letters. I feel I have this beauty of being able to bring on the people that I know that I want to talk about or I want to learn more about. And so they become these ways that you're sort of forced to listen to me say nice things about you. we're really good at being like, oh no, stop. Or like, pushing those things off. And so this is just a great avenue for me to have people have to sit there quietly while I'm saying something super nice. And I mean it. Like we talked about this before when we reconnected again of like, I just remember anytime I'd be by you or when we would be sitting outside, getting food, getting coffee, like I always had this sense of like rooting. Like I always felt still near you. And that's not something that I'm used to feeling. It's something I have to work at every day. And so I appreciate that. And it just makes me so excited to be having you in the field now, being able to create that more intentionally. Like I said, you did this. I would watch it. I'd see the photos. I'd see the interactions with a complete stranger and how you would do this. But I'm just excited about now people getting to be your client and getting to experience it on the depth that I know that you're capable of doing.
Thanks, Kira. I'm letting myself receive all of your words. They feel really nourishing. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So I like to start all of my episodes by asking people to give me a one-word check-in, therapist to therapist, that sort of emotional connection. So I'm curious for you, if you could describe how you feel right now with this topic, with this conversation, with just your life being where it is in this given moment, what is one word you would use to describe yourself right now?
Right in this moment, I feel excited. I feel excited to be talking to you and even talking about this. It is, like you said in the intro, it is such a tough topic, and it's one that impacts everyone. So I'm excited to be talking with you. And I'm excited about this podcast that you are working on. And it's looking at shame in all the different ways that we experience it and trying to dismantle it. It's a beautiful project.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think everything, it's like you start something because the ideal is you start something because it aligns with your values, the impact that you want to have. And it's the thing you want to get out of bed for. And after I recorded my first episode, I was like, where has this been all my life? I need to do this forever. I care if 0 people listen. What I love is this, like, I want to talk about this stuff because this stuff is hard and I want the space where we can do this. And I'm curious because, again, I'm like, let's dive into this topic. How did you get here? Because when we were first talking about the podcast, we tossed around some different ideas of where we could go. What made this one feel like it came to the top for you?
I think this is something I've been grappling with in my personal life pretty hardcore, especially in the last year, maybe even a little bit longer than that, maybe in the last few years. I'm 47. I'll be 48 this year. And so when we first talked about the possibility of doing a podcast, I was trying to think of something very therapist-y to talk about, something very professional and therapist-y. And then I thought, I felt like I'd have to do a bunch of research and feel really prepared with talking points. And then I thought, what feels really alive for just me right now in my personal life is aging.
Yeah.
And so then I suggested that topic. So,
and what was happening for you? Is it just numbers and sort of an awareness of numbers? Is it like personal changes? What was it that started to create this for you, or kind of make the waves feel more intense, do you think?
Well, so like I said, I'm 47 going on 48, and every woman's trajectory of experiencing perimenopause or menopause is going to be a little different. But I'm in the thick of it. I'm in the middle of like full on perimenopause, and it's weird. Like there have been times where my body doesn't feel like mine anymore. It feels unfamiliar. And I've never really heard many people talk about that. I mean, certainly, if I go looking for it online, I could find people who are talking about it, but nobody in my personal life, nobody in my family, nobody in my friend circle is really talking about this. Right. Although I have found that if I mention like, oh, it's getting weird, right? People, other women will be like, oh my God, yes. And then sometimes people are willing to talk about it, but it's a really weird process. The physical changes are so subtle and bizarre. And yeah, that's feeling really, really relevant for me right now.
And it's such a lonely feeling too. I mean, I think, I can only speak to my experience being in a female body, identifying as female, going through what I've gone through, but there's things that I've even experienced I'm 35, I think going on 36. And it's like I had a kid. My breasts are feed bags for the rest of my life. Like Everly can come hug me and she can like touch my breast. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, I don't feel anything. Like, it's totally whatever. If anybody else is like anywhere near them, I get this, like, don't go, like, it just feels different now. And it's this thing where I'm like, nobody prepared me for that. And, you know, or like periods changing or your hormones changing, or suddenly I'm like, was this what I always, like, I didn't get a period for 2 years being pregnant and breastfeeding. So I was like, gosh, are these always this hard? Or is this now what's happening? And why do I suddenly have pain in different ways? Why does like the idea of connection, intimacy, like everything takes more energy and time. But there are these beautiful things too. Like, it's not just a negative, like my body just feels like it sucks now, but it is learning that my body is growing and evolving. And then there's this play in of, you know, menopause is like the looming cloud that we either do or don't talk about. I don't even think most people know the difference between perimenopause and menopause. Like, there's so many layers to it, but we don't, again, talk about it. Yeah. And then there's the like third layer of we're all so bad at endings. Like, no, that's why, I mean, Facebook, I realize, is less relevant now than it was 10 years ago, but it's the reason why people are still friends with people on Instagram, on Facebook. They follow them on TikTok that they've never talked to or haven't maybe seen since high school, but you're following along, you know what their kids doing, you know what their business is. You're like having conversations about them because we can't end. And I think death and sort of the move that we're all making towards death is another thing that we sort of avoid. And so, yes, it just seems like there's this interplay of all of these pieces. And so there's, at least for women, it feels like now that you've got this tag on you, this perimenopause tag, it's like we're one step closer and now your body's weird and you're not connecting to it. And what are you going to do about it? And now like it's a downhill from here. So how are you going to handle that? How are you going to make this okay? So yeah, I mean, what's coming up for you as I'm saying all that? Because obviously my brain is ping-ponging everywhere. So what's coming up there?
Well, I think you're mentioning death is spot on. Grief is another, like you said in the intro, grief is, I hesitate to say a passion of mine because that sounds so strange, but I am very passionate about the process of grief. And we live in a culture that is just doesn't like to even think that death is a real thing, that doesn't want to think about it. And then grief is like, just, you know, you need some closure. I mean, we just don't have a lot of skill. The wider culture does not teach us skills for how to grieve ourselves or how to witness others who are grieving. And I think that aspect, that fear of death plays into this for sure, because a fear of death, part of that is also there's kind of a fear of living in there as well. Yep. So for myself, thinking about my own fear of death, like I don't want to feel like that for the next, I mean, hopefully I have decades yet ahead of me, and I don't want to feel that way. And I go to Facebook or I go to social media and the ads that come up for me are just, they're fear-based, they're shame-based, they're offensive, they're deeply offensive. And I just decided for myself that I want to try to the very best of my ability to live my life while I'm alive and to absolutely embrace being alive now, exactly now, how it is right now, not how it was 10 years ago, not how I'm hoping it'll be after I've done X, Y, Z, but right now, how can I enjoy my life? How can I live my life fully right now? Those are phrases that we kind of throw around, and, you know, it's easy to talk about living fully or enjoying your life when you're on vacation or you're doing something fun. But then when you, I don't know, start experiencing the body aches or a lack of libido or your sexual functioning starts to change in a natural way, not because there's anything wrong with you, but because you're changing, your body is changing, or your looks start to change, or you're just struggling with something else in life, it's a lot harder to understand that this also is part of living fully, that embracing all of this is part of living fully. Does that make sense?
It does. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. And the two things that are three. So one, I watched like the Fuller House remake, and there's a part where Kimmy Gibbler sings a song about your body parts rearranging. So when you talked about your body changing, I briefly went on that for a moment of like, your body's rearranging, do. So that's where I went for a brief moment. That was a less helpful tangent that we would go on. But the two that really came up that really, I think, are standing out for me is one, I think a lot, again, I filter my awareness of life through now parenting. And at the time we're recording this, she's, 3.25. And how I talk about life with her. And one of the things that I'm struggling with right now, because I think living life to your fullest is about being in every moment. And it is the integration of the past, the present, and the future. Because I think even what you described was like that song, Live Like You Were Dying, that, it's like, go skydiving and do this and make the most of all this stuff. Well, we've made enjoyable living escapism. You hate your life. And so you escape and you go live it till its fullest. And then you come back and you hate your life. And so there's this kind of disconnection of loving your life and creating opportunities to love your life in the simplest moments. In line with this, and then I'll pull back the Everly piece. In line with this is the idea of, I think what you said, that we chase sort of a binary of emotions, being happy, being excited. Sex is supposed to be like it was when we were, the first time you had it, or maybe once you figured it out. So 18, right. 19, 20 years old, and you're supposed to have that libido. It's supposed to feel that way. You're supposed to want to do it 3, 4, 5 times a day. And you've got the time for that, instead of thinking like, I might have a sexual interaction with a partner or partners, and I might not have an orgasm, or it might feel uncomfortable. And I don't know how to make sense of that, but I'm going to be curious about it. I'm going to enjoy this process of being intimate with someone that isn't outcome based. So there's that part too. And it's not just sex, but it's, teaching Everly about, I want you to be happy. I want to create moments for you to be happy. I'm also not going to stop you from feeling sad and angry, because those are experiences that are important too. And so bringing all that back together, what my brain, I think, really got fixated on was this idea of living is about being in every moment and finding ways to tap into our past, whether that's, revisiting memories, moving through hard things, grieving not just grieving a death, but all sorts of different losses and changes.
Yes. Transitions.
Exactly. It can also be, the movement in the future, the goals, the work we want to do, the impact we want to make. But it's the third part that I think we're missing, which is being in the now. And so it doesn't mean take off work, blow all your money, do all the things, but it's like today, I had this episode we're recording. I have one more, and then Jordan was going to take Everly to swim class. I took her on Monday. It was her first time getting in a swim class where I'm not in the pool with her. So she was so overwhelmed, and she's a therapist kid. So she takes her hand, puts it on the back of her head, and she goes, "Fear, we're okay." And I wanted to start sobbing. I was like, "Oh, I did. I'm talking so well." And she got in the water, and it was great. And then she and I went to the zoo this morning, and I just looked at her and I was like, "Why the fuck am I not going to swim class tonight? I don't have to get something else done on my list. Like I allotted the time to do these other things. It's okay to make the choice to just be, to decide I just want to be with my family." And I think that's the part we're afraid of. It's if I find out I've got a death diagnosis, or, a high mortality disease or something like that, like suddenly I'm going to start thinking about things differently. And again, going back to that song, Live Like You Were Dying. But it's, how do I go, I'm going to live like I've got decades left to live, and I'm going to continue to set goals and look at being the best version of myself over and over and over again, the iterative nature of learning and growing. I'm also going to lean into today and be okay with being present today. And so to your question, yes, you're making sense. And I think it just brings up this really deep philosophical piece of what it means to be present and to be integrated in our presence in our life.
Absolutely. I think I've always felt a little bit ashamed that I don't actually want to go skydiving, or I don't really have a bucket list, you know, and not that there's anything wrong with doing those things either. But I've always felt like, oh man, I maybe need to try harder, or like have a bucket list, but if we can't be present making dinner, we can't be present with our own ablutions, our own ritual of preparing our body for the day or winding down for the night. Like, it's also okay to find meaning in taking your kid to their swim class, quiet things. Like, that also can be living fully if you're doing it with full presence, as can the big things, a big trip or skydiving or climbing a mountain or whatever it is that you're into. So I agree with everything you're saying. I think it's beautifully worded. Another thing that comes up for me, especially as you mentioned your daughter, is what we value about ourselves when we're young and what we're kind of taught culturally to value about ourselves when we're young. I see that in a much different lens now. I found a picture of myself from maybe 12, 13 years ago. And I look so great in this photo. I look hot as hell. But when I found the photo, I remembered how I felt that morning being photographed. Like, I felt fat. I felt like my skirt didn't fit. I felt like my hair was all wrong. Like, everything was all wrong. Yep. And I look at that picture now and I think, oh my God, it doesn't matter what weight I'm at. It doesn't matter what my hair looks like. There is no satisfaction. Like, there's nothing that would let me know just from within myself that I'm okay. The message from within me is always, you're not okay because XYZ. Right. And thinking about it that way, it was like, well, geez, now I'm like, I have a little more weight on my body than I did then. My hair is silver. My skin has changed. My body has changed. And it's like, well, by that standard that I judged myself 12 years ago, that I wasn't happy, I should be even less happy with myself now. And it's like, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to. How can I value my life and my body right now? Right. And find pleasure in being alive in a body right now. And that also means like sex. Like, am I worthy of enjoying sex with my partner now, rather than making myself wait until I've lost a certain amount of weight or my hair has grown out and I feel like it looks more presentable. Right. Which he doesn't care about any of those things. Right. It's just me. I'm the one putting that pressure on myself. Right. But that's part of the shame of aging that really came to mind when we were planning this, is like feeling ashamed of a process that is totally natural and inevitable, and how crazy it is to even feel shame about such a process. It is a privilege to age. Not everybody gets to do it. Right. And so all of that factors into this topic for me. Well, and then I think it's even that piece where we basically create like a double-edged sword of shame, because you should feel shame for aging, for, accumulate the number of check boxes you haven't checked off in the appropriate amount of time, all the things that you should have done better. We're going, into our past, into our present, into our future. We are cataloging all of our failures, missteps, flops, and we're shamed into that. And it's even those things like looking back now and how insight is freeing, but it's also weaponizing in a way too. And so we see all of this, and you should feel bad about this. You should feel bad about aging. You should want to keep your skin like an infant's for the rest of your life. And here are all the supplements. Everly and I recently looked up, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, hydroloric acid. I was like, what the fuck is this? It's in everything now. I'm getting ads for that and ads for hearing aids. Like, I don't understand what's happening. I do know that I'm getting older because my floaters are increasing, which, side note, my eye doctor told me that skydiving will make them way worse. So maybe that's the reason. On a level of not going there, tell yourself it's because you don't want more floaters so you can enjoy blue skies. But I think it's that piece of just like, we're supposed to feel like our job is to want to grow up as quickly as we can. And I was very adultified, very parentified based on my own trauma, things I went through. Yeah. Same. But people thought it was cool. Like, I'm like the adult, I'm the kid, I'm the cool kid in the room. All the adults think I'm great. It's rushed to be an adult as quickly as you can. And all kids go through that regardless of their experience. And then somewhere in our 20s, we're like, I'm supposed to have it all figured out. This is where I peak. And now I think
people younger that I almost said kids, like it feels like they're kids, but it's like they're 22 or 24 or 26. And like, I don't have a house yet. I'm not in a relationship. I don't know if I want kids. I don't know about this. I don't have the perfect job. And it's like, what the fuck happened? Like you're supposed to peak, not even 25 years old. So then what does it mean for the rest of us? And then there's messaging around, you know, your bones peak at a certain age. So you got to start taking this supplement. There's all these things. But then on the flip side, I think we get shamed into not enjoying our life as much as we should. And so I think it is this binary construct that just keeps us stuck ping-ponging back and forth. So then I get all these people that sign up for my courses on self-love and self-care, and they just want to do these things, but it's reactive to, I'm not doing this stuff enough, but then eventually they're going to feel bad about doing that. And they should be in the grind more, and you're already behind. What do you think? And so they just keep yo-yoing. And that's what our life is for the decades that we're here. And then every once in a while, someone you love dies or gets sick, and you have this reset point, but it's like getting a speeding ticket. You don't speed for maybe 6 months, maybe a year, but you're going to speed again. So it's that piece of like, how do we have to flip the switch. It has to be, instead of it being a reaction to the fear around us, it has to be an internal rooting of, I deserve to spend time on my morning care routine with my face rather than avoid it and be afraid of it because I don't want to touch my face and feel the wrinkles, or I don't want to see the change in my skin texture. Or I remember my grandma, she must have been maybe in her 80s, maybe late 70s going into her 80s. She stopped wearing shorts outside of the house. And I was like, it is, now I really know how hot it is in Wisconsin, like how humid and muggy it is. I'm like, why are you not wearing shorts? And she's like, have you seen my knees? I can't let people see my knees. I was like, what's wrong with your knees? I don't understand. But to her, it was like, they're old now. They're wrinkly. They're ugly. Nobody wants to see them. So now I have to suffer and wear pants or sit inside of my house with my shorts on, but I can't go out in public and let somebody see my knees. And it's just those pieces where I'm like, I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm afraid to wear something that allows me to live comfortably and my best life. But I know that I'm a product of the same system she is if I'm not mindful now.
Yeah, I think about pleasure as you're talking about that, about how we restrict ourselves. And pleasure is, I actually had a client who didn't even like the word pleasure. Like she asked that I not use the word. I could use the word enjoy, but I couldn't use the word pleasure. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. And that's so representative of a lot of us, how we think about pleasure, that it has this like kind of icky sexual connotation, and it can't just be, same with sensuality, the word sensuality. People confuse it with sexuality a lot and they get all weird about it. And it just, to me, it just means the senses. Feeling, being in a feeling body, being in a feeling, hearing, tasting, seeing body, and letting yourself actually feel and see and taste and hear. And, you know, I'll just speak for myself. Everybody's body is different. Everyone's experience is different. But I notice, for example, just to go straight into the difficult topic of sex.
Yeah.
Like my own inner experience of desire is a lot quieter.
Yeah, mine too.
It used to be. And I felt really, when I first started realizing that that's what was happening, I felt distressed about that. And then I was thinking, well, how can I change that? Because that's kind of what we do. You identify a problem and then you try to find a solution.
As quickly as you can.
As quickly as you can.
Yeah.
And I want to validate that there definitely are things you can do. Lifestyle is a big thing. Low inflammation diet, making sure that your body is healthy. I mean, that is definitely always an ongoing challenge. But then I thought, okay, but there's a limit to how much I can do here, because this is an inevitable process that your body changes. And so after I've taken great care of myself and I'm trying to get more exercise and I'm trying to eat well and, I'm trying to do all the things. What if I still am not experiencing the same kind of desire, for example, that I experienced 20 years ago? And can I just learn to work with that? Can that just be okay?
Yeah.
Can it just be okay to be where I'm at?
Mm-hmm.
And is there something available to me now that maybe wouldn't have been available to me 20 years ago?
Right.
When my mom died 12 and a half years ago. And that was when I stopped dyeing my hair, because I realized that it was one of the top events in my life, biggest, like life-changing events in my life was my mom dying. And I realized I didn't feel any investment anymore in trying to trick everybody into thinking that I'm forever 28. I was 36 at the time. And with my hair dyed, nobody could tell how old I was. People would be like, oh, I don't know, 25. And I'd be like, oh, awesome. Amazing. I'm actually 36. I'd be like, oh my God, really? And I'd feel so good about myself. And then my mom died and it was like, no, I just don't have the energy for that. And I know things now that I didn't when I was 28. And I feel like I want the world to know that.
Yeah.
Like, I want the world to know that I know something now. I know something precious. And, I didn't know that when I was 28, and that's okay that I didn't know it, but now I do. And I don't need everybody to keep thinking that I'm that 28-year-old. And so, what do I have access to now in my relationships, within my own inner knowing? Like, what do I have access to now as a result of my age that I didn't 20 years ago? And can that be enough? Can I be okay with that? Even if it comes with a different kind of desire or joint aches or, things like that.
And I think the space to do that also comes with the work we need to do to stop projecting our shame and fears into all of the relationships that are around us. There are definitely people that are going to make us feel unsafe in the aging, or people, I've had clients in relationships where one of them does feel different. If we're sticking even just in the sex vein, and like desire and connection looks different, and there's legitimate mental, emotional abuse or this pressure that the person feels. It's often a female, it's often a woman that will feel this and then feel like they're deficient now and they've got to make up for it. And what does that mean? And so then there's this projection into the relationship, an unspoken storyline that I think takes over. And again, in some relationships and dynamics, it's going to be an important thing that needs to be talked about. Not every relationship, is it fair to say, this is a story you're carrying, a burden you have. No one feels that way. You're safe. Be yourself. That isn't always true, unfortunately. And I think for many of us, it is, even like you said, for you, you're projecting onto your partner what you think they think you need to look like to be attractive in any given moment. And I would do that, whether it was Jordan just giving me a kiss goodbye or, all the way through to sex or something to that point. And it was the change of, and I don't know, I have no clue if part of this is age, if part of this is having a baby, if part of this is going through the pandemic and sort of trauma of literally not leaving my house for months. And like everything became a, sort of a doing notion, even more than it did before. But for whatever reason, I don't have to know the answer. The reality is how I engage with those things looks different. And I had so many stories, like to the point where I'm like, he's going to leave me. He's going to leave me if I'm not interested in wanting to do these things all the time. I've got to figure out how to perform, how to pretend. I felt like I was 15 again, where it's like, you've got to, girls are taught, and I don't want to project it that not other people are too, but as a cisgender female, a heterosexual cisgender female, it was that you are taught how to fake an orgasm because your job is to be sort of in service. And so it was that same feeling of like, do I have to pretend these things? Now am I in the chase for the next performance? Now it's just hiding your age and still dressing a certain way or looking a certain way and accomplishing at a certain level and reaching certain things by different milestones, but also now your internal stories coming into these most intimate relationships. And so I think for a lot of us, it's learning to release that, learning to see sort of the collective experience we all have and getting to know our bodies as they age, as they change. And when we don't bring that sort of underlying projection in, we and the people around us can feel connection in different ways, whether that is sexual or not, but it is that piece. And I think, at least for me, that's the thing I'm trying to think about is like, how do I just be in a moment? And again, not focusing on the output. And for you, that idea of things are different now. It's not a loss, it's a change. And
right.
Christy, who I did the podcast episode with around sexuality and sort of the sexual self and intimacy, she used this word curiosity. And I think that's sort of the thing with aging in general. And so it'd be easy for, I mean, we could talk about specifically just women's bodies and sex and aging for 10 hours and not even scratch the surface. But it's not just even that. It's all aspects of aging, the reallocation of resources, the meaning making evolution of our life. What would it look like to become curious about that, to explore it, to see the differences, to celebrate that when I was 20, I thought going out and dancing on top of bars till 2 a.m. was one of the best uses of a Friday night. I loved it. I loved certain bars in Madison. They had the best music and I was obsessed with it. It was amazing. I didn't even have to drink to go. I just wanted to go to a club type vibe and dance on a bar. And it was wonderful. At 35, going on 36 with a 3-year-old and having just bought a house and navigating, running my own business and a different body. I'm really like all about maybe a brownie and some Ted Lasso and in bed by 9:15. And that feels wonderful. And that is a very fulfilling night for me. And why can't I celebrate both? Why can't I celebrate that I would rather go get coffee with somebody now, or I want to get up at 5:30 to just have a moment to myself? And that feels good, or that I did want to have sex 3 times a day when I was 20 or 21, because that's literally how your body's hormonal system is designed. And I had a different sexual appetite. Why is it less than if I don't engage with it the same way now? Why is it not equally, if not more special to experience it the way that I'm experiencing sex in my body now at 36 or that I will at 56 or 76? Oh, I want to talk about this we're going to need to do like a parts 2, 3, 4, 8, 12, 15.
No, there's so many layers, so many layers.
And also just, I think you as a person, you might end up becoming like a separate segment. Like we're going to have you back every so often of like,
oh, I would love that.
Yeah. Fireside chats with Bobbie type idea. It is, I guess for me, just thinking about us wrapping up, or maybe pausing for today. We'll say that since we're going to continue this conversation at a different point. Let's now fast forward to 6 months from now when this comes out and you're listening to this, I'm listening to this. What do we want ourselves to hear? What do we want ourselves to hold on to come back to when that urgency, when that judgment takes the place of curiosity? What do you want yourself to hear in that moment?
That's a lovely, lovely question. You are alive now. Your life has value and worth exactly how it is right now. Live right now. And from the inside out, check in with yourself first to determine what you want to do, where you want to go, how you want to feel. And then go after that.
I love that. And I love what you just said about sort of being alive now. And I think for me, it's then layering in, which is going to be probably one of our part 2 through 27 episodes, is the grief piece. Because I think what I also need to learn to be open to the grieving of the daily losses. The fact that time is finite, the fact that I can't do the swim class tonight and have a 45-minute workout and get the house clean and make dinner and design the office layout since we're, still coming out of boxes. Like I can't do all those things, and that's okay. And so I think starting to see grief with more of an openness and curiosity as well, I think I just want to remind myself of that too.
Absolutely. I find myself like almost instantly moved to ugly crying tears when I see retrospectives of a life these days, because of that realization that like the realization is fresh. I'm having it in a fresh way that this is finite. This does end. And there's a feeling that I don't think we even have a word for in English. Maybe another language has some words for it, but that heartache of the transience of life and the preciousness of it. So absolutely, that's another extremely important aspect of this.
Yeah. Well, again, everyone, stay buckled in, come back often, because Bobbie's not going anywhere. She's going to have to come back. And I knew this was going to happen because we started our recording and we were 20 minutes into our recording time and we hadn't even hit recorded yet because we were just chatting about everything. Because it's just who you and I have always been. It's like, right away, let's go deep. Let's be real. Let's be raw and honest. And so maybe we just need to start recording our regular conversations, putting those out there. I'm going to have a link to your website so that people in the Madison, Wisconsin area that are looking for a fantastic, wonderful, amazing therapist can find you, can connect with you, can see all the other beautiful things that you do. For anybody that was able to just get a glimpse of who Bobbie is, again, be in that moment, because when I'm around her, I'm reminded of what that preciousness that she's talking about, that feeling of just being in a moment. And I think for all of us to walk away knowing that we have the right to do that. Your to-do list is always going to be there. I want you to have goals. I want you to think about your 10-year plan, your 20-year plan. I want you to create a life where you're excited to be alive for all of those pieces. I also want you to just stop pushing joy off, stop pushing feeling off. Again, not just the quote unquote good ones, but all of them, being in those spaces, allowing yourself to just I watch a movie. I watch a movie with Everly and I don't do anything. That's it. We just watch a movie and I usually cry because something works out. And now I cry every time something works out because I'm just reminded life is precious. Like that is just, I never did that. I watched movies while I did 100 different things. Just watch the movie, go for the walk, be at the dinner table with your family or your friends, just being present in that and finding that balance between living in the past, the present, and the future. And so, as always, I will be back next Sunday with another episode. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know when new episodes come out and also be alerted the next time Bobbie is here. Because again, I'm going to say it, I'm manifesting our future. You're going to be back lots. And yes. I am just grateful to all of you for being here. Grateful to Bobbie for being a part of this conversation. And I will see you all here next Sunday.